I'm sure there's going to be lots of people watching.
Well, I think Tim's on as an attendee. Yeah, I see him there. Hopefully you can hear us.
Well, I'm sure there's going to be lots of people watching. All right, we are streaming.
Okay.
The captain might not be able to make it. He was down in Eureka with the situation they had going on.
Okay.
Scott, would you like me to promote, if that's Tim, would you like me to promote him to a panelist so we can see him?
Absolutely.
All right, I'll do that.
I didn't know you had that kind of power.
Yeah, it's pretty impressive.
Well, wield it responsibly.
As long as he's nice, and if he becomes nice, we will kick him back. So
well,
yeah.
that won't.
What's that? If I act up, I'm out?
If he acts up, he's out. That's exactly right.
Is that all it takes to get kicked out of this group? I'm gonna have to rethink my options here.
Me too.
So, all right. Well, here we go. So it's the February meeting of the Deer Management Subcommittee. Michelle, would you call the roll? You're on mute.
Still not hearing him.
I should know about that by now.
Yeah, we need to be.
Okay, calling roll. Marshall Scott Collier.
I think I'm here, yes.
Okay, and board member Jeff Baker.
Here.
Sergeant Wendling.
I'm here.
And we have Tim Dons as a panelist and Rick Brown. All right.
It's kind of like Romper Room. I can see Rick and I can see Michelle, and this is awesome. Oh, that's right, you're recording. Sorry, goodness, got to keep it straight. So first thing, we just approved the minutes from the last meeting. Hopefully everyone has had a chance to review. Are there any additions, corrections? I mean, what I saw was pretty good. Seemed so. Hearing no objections, we will accept the minutes as written. Next is the time for public comment. Other than Tim, Tim's here. You know, you're going to participate the whole time, so I don't see anybody else in the queue. Nope.
Nope.
So much for that. Brad, update on the sampling.
Yeah, so unfortunately, Sarah Van Wert in our planning and analysis has been a little too busy. Her workload's been a little too great for her. So hopefully she's hoping she'll have it done by next week.
Okay.
So she just wasn't able to finish it up or really even give me any numbers just to that I could spew out unofficially, because
Okay.
she's still entering all the data. So, but it shouldn't be too much longer. Hopefully within a week or so it'll be completed.
Okay. All right. And that'll just be, you know, important for when we issue the final or the draft report to council, so they have an idea of our starting point.
Yes.
You know, and goals. So that's good. All righty. So the draft deer management plan. I know we need to talk about some possible ordinance changes. Rick?
Yeah, I kind of put these on here primarily from Brad's email earlier, and some things we could discuss in lieu of diving into the details of the deer sampling population study results. So I know we've talked about possible ordinance changes for combining properties to meet the 3-acre minimum and the no feed ordinance
Right.
to be the two most common ones that have been discussed. The combination of properties seems to be maybe less widely supported and a little more concerning to some. And Fred, you want to talk a little further about that? You did a little research on that relative to other municipalities. I was going back to, I think sometime I'd done some similar research as well. You want to talk about
and I'm gonna, because I've got the memo, Brad, from Captain Mundell, where he did, he broke it down by municipality, who's doing what. And I'm just gonna share the screen. So, oh, okay, never mind. Host has disabled that. Rick, do you have it? Do you want to share that just so we can see it? Or
let me see if I can let you share your screen. Maybe I can do that real quick. I gotta believe you can. Although I'm not seeing that as an option, but okay. Let me do this. Congratulations, you're a co-host.
Oh boy.
Now, can you do it?
Yep.
That's impressive.
You see the document's what's important. Not the sunset in the Virgin Islands. That's where we were 2 weeks ago. I kind of feel like Ted Cruz at the moment, having said that. But by the way, where we were at, so right over here, that's Jeffrey Epstein's island. Who knew? So, all right, anyhow, so Brad, go ahead, just so we can see the chart in the center here is probably the most pertinent.
Yeah. So essentially, the majority of our neighboring municipalities all allow for combined parcels when you're speaking about hunting. So town and country is kind of a unique, they really don't allow hunting per se. Mm-hmm. It's a very unique situation they have there. So it's kind of confusing. They have some wildlife areas where you can hunt, but generally it's not allowable in their city limits. Mm-hmm. So for all the municipalities that allow for hunting, they all allow for the combined parcels. Mm-hmm. And then they vary in parcel size, which is kind of interesting. So Chesterfield has the most liberal ordinance that allows for hunting on a half an acre parcel. Okay. And then it goes up, from there. It looks like the most common parcel size is an acre, but Wildwood requires a minimum of 3 acres. So I think even if, we stuck with the 3 acre minimum, we'd still, I think more people would feel comfortable about the 3 acre parcel size.
Okay. Just for clarity, for my own edification here, when we say parcel, so looking at Baldwin, and it's a 1 acre parcel, does that mean that each individual who combines must bring an acre to the party, or the combined total must meet the minimum of 1 acre?
So that was, those are all combined totals.
Okay. That's what I wanted to be clear.
Yeah.
Okay.
A good question.
And then Ellisville and Manchester appear to be the only ones that have a limit on the number of parcels that can be combined to meet that minimum size, I guess.
Yes, it's unaddressed in the rest of the municipal ordinances,
right,
in respective cities. But
yeah. So I guess in a way, so Manchester's saying essentially, if you're going to join, you have to at least have a 1/4 acre.
Right. Well, yeah.
Well, no, maybe not.
It'll be an acre. Yeah. So you'd have to have 1 acre lots.
Right.
If, to be able to meet that. So I'm sure there was some thought that they put into all that.
Okay. Yeah. And just, you're right. It's a 4 parcel maximum. 2 people could do it and meet the acre, and they could set that up. Right. Okay.
Yeah. For Manchester. Yes.
Right. And same for Ellisville, except Ellisville has 3 acres. That's interesting.
Yeah. So their lots would have to be, the individual lots would have to be an acre.
Mhm.
And then with Manchester, it's to the other extreme, really, where it's a quarter of an acre, I guess, to meet the minimum acre. So it'd be, allow for hunting in a pretty densely populated area.
And all of them, it's archery only
Yes,
for the parcel combining, and some, about half or a little over, allow crossbow.
correct.
Okay. And almost everyone, with the exception of Eureka and us, have a no feeding ordinance.
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
I can say that the no feed ordinance too. I know Aaron Shank is generally in favor of that. She feels that that's a good idea.
Sure. And I think, that's an easy one, I think. I don't think anyone really disagrees. There's some people, might grumble, but I think by and large, most people would say that makes sense if you're trying to, keep the deer away. All right. So any thoughts on this? Is there, I guess one of the things we have to do eventually is come to a consensus on do we want to allow folks to combine? And if so, then what would be a parcel size? And then, do we allow archery, which I think, is an obvious, that would be the way to go. But the sub question then is whether we allow crossbow. So everybody, anyone have thoughts? Or am I sailing down the wrong river, and maybe we don't want to do this at all? I don't know. You guys tell me.
Can I bring up something as well
Yes.
from recent phone calls that I received? I receive calls occasionally from people who back up to large, empty land, and so have maybe like a 1 acre parcel that backs up to. So that's just something to think about as well.
And those people were concerned about allowing hunting at all, or?
No, they wanted to be able to hunt on their property, and they wished that they could.
Sure. Let me put it this way. Is there anyone who thinks allowing or combining parcels, that we should not allow combining parcels? Let's set aside the question of how many and what size. Is there anyone who thinks we shouldn't do that as part of this plan? Okay, so I think that's easy consensus there. Does anyone have any thoughts on the parcel size? Do we want to set a minimum? And if we want to, like Ellisville or Manchester, have a maximum number of properties?
I would think it would be good to stay in line with the current ordinance and stay with the 3 acre parcel size. That way there's really not a real big change as far as the total amount of area that's required to hunt. So I would think we should probably stick with the 3 acres just because that's what how the ordinance was adopted.
Right. Okay.
So is that, excuse me, a 3 acre requirement, meaning 3 1 acre lots can be put together to make the 3 acres? Is that what I understand correctly? Is that?
Well, it could go either way. I mean, if we want to limit the number of lots that can be combined to meet the 3 acres to avoid the possibility of hunting in the more densely populated areas, then you would want to apply that further restriction. But I really, I feel that if there's a site layout that's safe for people to do this. I don't know that you would want to necessarily impose that restriction across the board, because then you're going to limit maybe some potential areas where we need to do some hunting, and where people would be willing to do some hunting that would cause a good positive impact for the control of the population. So my opinion would be to not impose those restrictions. But I think that it's important that someone from the city review the proposed, hunting areas and make sure that it's going to be a safe situation, especially, if you're talking about hunting in a more a more densely populated area. I think it's important to maybe have some restrictions or requirements in place to where a city official would come out and review the layout and the hunting site itself, so we know that we're following the proper safety protocols.
Okay. So the idea being, since the current ordinance is 3 acres, if two people could combine two parcels of property to meet the minimum 3 acre requirement, one of them might have 1.5 and the other guy might have a half acre, right? Or excuse me, 2 acres and 1 acre. You might have 4 people. It might be split up, and that might be one guy with a half acre, and as long as the combined parcels meet the minimum 3 acre requirement. Correct. Tim, do you think would there be a value to setting a minimum acre size of participants? I don't think so, because I kind of agree with Brad. I don't know that we want to get that far into the weeds, as long as it's in an area. As long as someone is inspecting it, say, oh yeah, this would be reasonable. I just don't know that we want to get that deep into it.
Yeah, I'm sorry, go ahead.
You're good. I was just sitting there thinking how that would work. I kind of like the idea of kind of Manchester and Elsa have done with the maximum parcels, because I'm backed up to McBride Point, and they'll have like half the 1 acre lots over there. And I'm just envisioning if they put 3 or 4 of those together and are hunting towards my property, how do I know who would be out there hunting when? Because like right now where I'm at is, if anybody's hunting, we always know the neighbors. But if you got 3 or 4 parcels along McBride Point, and then my kids are out in the woods playing and goofing off, and somebody's over there hunting, I'm just trying to figure out how that would work.
Yeah, so generally there's a stipulation in most of the ordinances that require notification to adjoining properties when people are actually planning to hunt. So the ordinance would be written in such a way, I would think that we would include that. I think that's an important component to have in place. So adjoining property owners are aware that their neighbors are planning on hunting on a specific date and time. So everybody's aware of what's going on.
Okay, that's what I'm just trying to think how that would, and that makes sense if that works that way, but you start getting so many restrictions, so many different things. Because like in Ellisville, Ballin, all that stuff, and there's parts of Ballin and Ellisville that are more heavily wooded, but everybody knows all their neighbors. Right. But where I've got 11 neighbors where I'm located at, so I only know 2.
Okay. So do you think it would make sense though to have a maximum, like Ellisville and Manchester, a maximum number of participants?
I would think so.
What would be a good number? I mean, I see 3 and I see 4. I'm not sure where they pulled that out of, but
I think either one of those would be fine, 3 or 4. Just enough that could be anywhere from 3 to 4 houses. That way you don't get so many lots involved, and then so many people involved. Limit to how many people be involved.
So the thing you have to keep in mind while we're discussing this is that essentially, when you're speaking of the more densely populated areas where your lot sizes are much smaller, then you're essentially eliminating the possibility for people to hunt in those areas. And we can't necessarily say that at some point we may need to encourage hunting in these areas to manage the population. Because I mean, just over time, I would imagine that our hot spots, so to speak, where we need to reduce the population are probably going to be changing, slightly over time. So that would be my only input concerning that we just be aware of that. And I mean, I really don't feel like I should be really recommending what is done with that. But I just want to make that point that you're aware of that would potentially eliminate certain areas where eliminate the possibility for residents to be able to hunt.
Would it kind of make for an easier situation to say a 3-acre minimum with a 1-acre maximum parcel size unless otherwise approved by a city official? And that way those other sites can be evaluated based on.
Or you could just really simplify it and just say that you're going to require 3 acres with the approval of the city. And then that way, the layout and sites can be inspected. And if there's things that you can articulate to say that would be unsafe, then you would deny the approval of the request.
Okay.
I mean,
And that would be east of 109 specifically, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, I don't think there's any lots that are less than 3 acres west of 109, right, Rick?
Oh, I think there's plenty that are probably, so there's definitely some small lot subdivisions immediately near 109, but west of it. But sure, predominantly, you're going to have large lot 3 acre or more tracts, but there are some small, like Lafayette Trails, say, those subdivisions.
And when we say parcel size, we're saying a minimum. We wouldn't restrict, if people got together and it was actually 8 acres, why would we restrict that? Right? If you had 3 people and they had 8 acres between them or whatnot.
If you had a 1 acre wanted to combine with an 8 acre property, I think that would work, I guess, if there was no limit on the minimum size.
Well, I'm just saying for the parcel size, if it's 3 acres, we're saying the minimum parcel size is 3.
Right.
I think that's a maximum.
Oh. I thought it was the minimum.
It's the minimum.
The
Combined parcel size had to be
Minimum combined.
Minimum combined to 3 acres. Yeah.
Okay.
I was going to suggest, kind of to the contrary, I was going to suggest, because I distinctly remember hearing from a couple council members concerned about small lot subdivisions and combining several properties to reach the 3 acres. And I kind of felt like, maybe just following what Ellisville has done would be a safe approach. Admittedly, it would probably rule out most small lot subdivisions, but it would provide a little more flexibility outside those areas to combine properties. But I guess I really kind of felt like there wasn't a lot of support for combining a lot of 1/4 acre lots to get to that 3 acre. And I know that would rule out some areas for potential hunting, but I think saying that Ellisville is doing it might make it a little more palatable. And they've got the 3 acre minimum with 1 acre, right? 3 1 acre lots, or 3 parcel maximum.
I mean, Ellisville, as long as you have 3 participants and they reach 3 acres.
3 acres, yeah.
So there wouldn't be a minimum parcel individual size.
Right, that's true.
The combined 3 must have at least 3 acres. It might be more. Tim, yeah, please jump in.
Do you know if Ellisville also includes a review of those properties? Because I think that's really important. I mean, like Jeff's scenario of his own property, I was going to give an example sort of similar to his. And the thing is that there are so many scenarios of what if this, what if that.
Mhm.
I don't think you can plan for all of them in advance. I think it needs to be a combination of review by officials and maybe getting the permission of parcels within a certain distance so they know what's going on. Reporting exactly when you're going to be hunting on any given day ahead of time so neighbors know that seems like a tall order to me. But if you know that people are going to be hunting, yeah, if I owned a quarter-acre lot, for instance, and I'm up against 30 acres and somebody's on the fence line just because there's a few trees there, you're basically now hunting in their backyard. So I think, some amount of review and logic has to be put into the approval process. And I don't know that you can specify every scenario in an ordinance to rule out a scenario where someone's going to be uncomfortable, unhappy, or have a deer with an arrow running through their backyard while their kids are on their swing set. All those things are, just going to make things worse for the hunting world. In my opinion, we have to be as tippy toe and gentle around people concerned about hunting as we are with trying hard to manage that herd on top of it. It's two ends of the spectrum. And I don't know that you can make rules for every one of those. I think generalities like some of these are doing sound good, but my curiosity back to the original question, are they given it a review? Is someone given a sign off, and do the neighbors get to know about it and have input? Those are some of my thoughts.
Yeah, no, that's good stuff. And I agree with you. I think whatever we do with this, I like the 3-acre thing. I definitely think there has to be notice to people, but I agree with Brad and you both that there needs to be some sort of review. I'll use the word permission or granted, right, by the city saying, yep, we've reviewed it. The neighbors have been notified. No one objected. Okay. Because to your point, we can't anticipate every situation. But Jeff, would that be a set for you, for where you're living in particular? Would that satisfy you if you were given prior notice and knew that someone in the city was reviewing it, looking for that?
Yeah, if I knew it'd be better, but I still keep going back to the, I'm using McBride Point as an example. I can use my parents' subdivision, even in Baldwin. Everybody's got big lots, and basically you have like one long lot. So basically, it's not even a good hunting. Like I enjoy hunting, and I'm 100% for it. But when you start combining parcels, and you got houses in the way, you got dogs, there's just so many variables. That's why I like the idea of limiting parcels, but still allow the 3 acres. Just I don't know. That's why we're here, I guess, trying to figure it all out to where it works well.
Yeah, Tim, please.
Yeah, Jeff, my point to your situation is, what if a parcel is 10 acres and then suddenly you back up, like you're saying, with very small lots next to each other, and you take one person, add it to 8 acres, no matter what that size is, you find the loophole. I'm not saying the parcel count isn't a good portion of it, but how do we fill that loophole when somebody with a quarter acre can add to 10 acres and suddenly now they are literally hunting right next to their neighbor whose house isn't but 20 yards away when you shouldn't be hunting. It just gave me another thought. Maybe there's also requirements on how close you can put a stand near another property line or a house. You certainly don't want somebody in a ground blind, especially, or in a stand that could actually send an arrow at a deer and it end up coming through somebody's fence and into their yard. So maybe there's distances on regulations on distances on, from another property or the home itself. I'm just thinking out loud right now. So some of my thoughts.
Those are good points.
So a lot of that's contained in the current hunting ordinances, the distances that you can discharge a firearm or archery device from a building. But the caveat to that is basically if you have the permission of the owner of that building or structure, then those distances don't apply. But it would apply to the neighboring properties that aren't included in the combination of parcels to meet the required minimum to hunt. So, I mean, my advice is just to try and keep. I mean, as enforcer of ordinances,
Yeah.
best to keep things as simple as possible and not have so many sections and restrictions and everything to try and cover every possible scenario. But like I mentioned earlier, I think it would be best to have that stipulation of approval by the city be the final, determining factor as to whether or not it's permitted. I mean, you can have your basic guidelines as far as, kind of what you want to shoot for is the lot size, total lot size. And if you want to go into, the number of if you want to restrict the number of parcels that can be combined, you could do that. But I think you would be kind of eliminating some areas where hunting might be really highly desired in the future, just to be able to control the population of the herd in specific areas in the city. So I would be cautious about doing that, just because of that fact. If you do that, then you're definitely saying, when you enact this ordinance, that we're not going to allow for hunting in these more densely populated areas where we have the smaller lot sizes. So I think, and I can say, just off of West Glen Farms and up and Thunderhead Canyon and all that area, the population is dense, and hunting needs to probably take place in those areas in some fashion to be able to have an impact on the size of the herd. But if you're going to limit the number of properties that you can combine, then you're really probably going to eliminate the possibility of hunting in those areas, because the lot sizes are smaller in those areas.
Do you know what those lot sizes are? Are they like quarter acre lots, or are they smaller than that?
It would be my guess that they're probably quarter acre, but I don't want to say make an official statement as to what.
So basically, if we kind of like match with Manchester, do like 4 parcels. I mean, nobody's out there doing surveys, I guess, for quarter acre lots, because I mean, you bring up great points. It's just they're super thick in that area.
Right.
Yeah, to your point, Manchester seems to be saying nothing smaller than a quarter acre, sort of.
Right.
That's not the true way that mathematically works, because if you have less than 4, then each one's got to be a little larger.
And
but if you
that's
have
pretty
4,
close.
there's de facto.
That's pretty close quarters when you have somebody hunting. So I mean, everybody definitely needs to be on board and
right now, correct me if I'm wrong, but right now the ordinance does provide for distance from home.
Yes. Yeah. So there's requirements for both.
That is on the book, so that's good.
Yeah. And I don't think we would want to change any of that, because that's all pretty standard, and
right.
And most of the municipal ordinances are consistent with those distances. So I don't think that's anything that we would want to change. But like I said, if when you combine, if you allow for a combination of parcels, then really essentially all the property owners are consenting to someone discharging an archery device or a firearm potentially, in less distance than what would normally be required by ordinance. So that's kind of
the only thing I'm sitting there thinking, if you start getting that many, like if you got yards that back up to each other, you could have 4 parcels that say we're good, and then two on the other side say no, but then two of the neighbors, I don't know if that makes sense. Back if you got yards that back up to each other, if you got backyards that back up, and you got three here and then two, I just think it's staggering. So how does that work? So instead of like being
Right.
like everybody's thinking just a square, but if what if it goes up and then over and then back up and then back over again to get to their 3 acres, and it starts getting really confusing.
And Tim, I'll get to you in a second. To your point, Jeff, that's exactly where I live on the street I'm on. We all back up to a gully, and everyone is a stone's throw. A good stone, but still a stone's throw. So literally, 4 or 5 of them could probably get up to the minimum, but there'd be a bunch of others that are right in the line of sight as well. So I think, Brad, to your point, there would have to be some sort of A, notice, and B, approval by the city at a minimum to
I'm sure there's a way that could be worded to make it a requirement that you couldn't have just a straight line row of parcels that would really not make any sense for. I mean, it would be impossible to hunt safely.
We could have a 3-acre strip 100 feet wide.
Right.
Yeah. And that's what I think you want to avoid, right? And Tim, I think you would agree with that. But you had another point you wanted to make, Tim?
Well, similar to all that is whatever a shape of a property ends up being when you put them all together, should there be the opportunity for the neighbors that have yards that back up, maybe not neighbors that touch across the street, but maybe anybody that has as a part of their parcel touch that property, have the right to say, no, I'm not comfortable with this. And then it's all shut down. I don't know if any of these municipalities have rights for those adjoining neighbors. Maybe they're not hunters. Maybe they're the Jeffs. They just want to know. They want to know what's going on near them. And if they're not comfortable with it, they want to be able to say no. I don't know if any of the municipalities have that part. Again, are they reviewing the parcel and the situation, or do they reach out to the adjoining properties and give them the right to shut it down if they're not okay with it?
Yeah. Brad or Rick, would this be this is great, and I very much appreciate, Brad, what you've done here, but I think we have a few more questions we need to answer about what these cities do require. Would it take a lot of time just to pick a few of these towns and say, what are the details, or is this something we could find on their websites?
No, I mean, I have all the ordinances, so
Okay.
I can research that and see. Off the top of my head, I don't believe that any of them have any section in there that says if a adjoining property owner objects that they can't do it. I don't think that's
Okay.
exists in any of the ordinances, but I'll be happy to review all of them just to make sure
But it'd
that.
still be good to know that, because I think it'd be a fair question for council to ask, I think.
Yes.
There's probably no reason why we couldn't do that, is there?
No.
But I'm like Brad, I don't know that I've seen that in the other cities and ordinances. I was looking at them.
And you've got to, like in our neighborhood, I know we got a lot of people that they won't let you recover a deer on their property if you shoot one and it stumbles onto their property. So
that's a common component of all the ordinances, that you can't trespass on adjoining property to pursue your game. So you have to have permission from the property owner to pursue game pretty much everywhere.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't need to cause extra work if we generally know that most municipalities don't have that in their ordinances. I don't need to have that reconfirmed or anything. I was curious because I don't know these things.
Yeah, me either. So, my suspicion is it's exactly as Brad mentioned. And actually, what we would be doing when we craft the draft, we're going to be looking at those other ones anyways, and cherry picking the pieces. There's no sense in creating our own language if the language already exists. So I do have a question though, so clearly everyone's allowing archery. I think that's what, we're discussing here is archery. The question then becomes, do we wish to allow crossbow or not?
I'd be mixed on crossbow. Crossbows are usually a quick kill, but depends on the user.
That's true of most weapons, right? Yep. So you would
When you
be
say-
in favor or not? I'm sorry, Jeff.
I said I'm kind of mixed on it. I said I'm in favor of them because they're a quick kill, so less chance that you're roaming too far, jumping too far. But then it all comes down to user. But yeah, that's what, like any weapon, like you said.
Would you say from a stand only?
Can we say that, or I'm sorry?
I mean, that's something that I think, goes into the being too detailed with the verbiage and the ordinance.
Yeah.
I mean, that's certainly a component for consideration when property owners are seeking approval for a permit, then that can all be reviewed. I mean, that would be part of the information that the city would request, what type of, are you going to use an archery device or a crossbow?
Mhm.
So with that information, then, you would, make sure that you have the appropriate setting to be using a crossbow. I mean, obviously the crossbow, the bolt will travel a greater distance, has much more velocity than a standard bow. So, I mean, that's something that the city would have to adopt in their policy of review for the permitting process.
Let me ask it this way. So if we were to say 2, 4, so there's maybe one more yes than no on the list of the municipalities around us with this. If we were to say no crossbow, are we going to be eliminating a lot of hunters? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, you could also use the argument that a crossbow's more accurate than a standard bow and arrow.
Yeah.
So there's pluses and minuses to all of it. So
I'm rather agnostic about the choice. So Tim, I know you have your hand up.
I think it would be best left to the permitting, and approval process.
Makes sense.
I would think.
My comment was going to be towards the question of, are you eliminating hunters? And I think in the last 5 years, the popularity of crossbows have grown tremendously, and it helps younger hunters get out there that can't draw a compound bow.
Mm-hmm.
Dad can take them out, and a younger hunter can handle and accurately shoot a crossbow. Older guys with bad shoulders. I've been there. I am working on my shoulder, but I have 2 buddy hunters. One's younger than me. One's the same age. Both of them use crossbows because of their shoulders. I've been lucky enough to not have to, but I think there's a limitation on at least the hunting community.
Okay. So I thought. Okay. Do we have? So how do we feel? Is there anyone who's strongly opposed to allowing crossbow? I'm not. Okay. So I'm gonna, at least at this point, I think we're leaning towards yes on crossbow. All right. Is there anyone who disagrees with the idea of a no feed ordinance?
Mr. Marshall?
No?
I had a couple comments about the combining of lots before we move on, if that's okay.
Okay. Yeah.
Before we move on, I was looking at the comments I pulled together from the meeting we had with the Admin Public Works Committee. And I was reading through some of the comments. So I was wanting to maybe make sure we had an opportunity to address them or discuss them a little bit. And since we're on the topic of combining lots. So the one question I had in there, and I was noticing it, is there liability or could they get dropped from homeowners insurance policies by combining lots was one of the questions. And I was noticing that some of these other municipalities do have insurance requirements in their ordinance. So that might be something we want to think about too, whether we'd want to have an explicit insurance requirement to address that concern. I want to say that was Councilmember Edens who brought that up potentially.
Yeah.
I could be wrong. That was one point that I saw in there, and then I think that was pretty much it. In the prior,
I have that document.
yeah.
So everyone can see. I mean, enlarge it a little. Get rid of this. I would think that we would want, people, I'm just thinking out loud here, as far as ordinances go, that, that the liability is the homeowners. If they're coming together with their properties to hunt, it's their liability, and insurance would be their concern, or it should be. And I think any ordinance we have should, if we don't require some sort of insurance, that we make it very plain that that is their concern, as property owners, and that the city is not going to be held liable or accountable, that they are responsible for, the activities on their property.
When I looked at this some time back, I think I came up with Ellisville, Chesterfield, Clarkson Valley, Manchester, Baldwin all have insurance requirements in their ordinance.
And it probably makes sense to have that in there. That'd be part of the approval process, right? I mean, if we're thinking about it, the city would be looking at where is it, how many parcels, what does it look like, they got a good shape, whatever. But also, yeah, that absolutely. Does anyone think that's a bad idea?
Although,
I don't either. So I think it's something we ought to include.
we don't have that right now, Brad, right?
No.
But I would say those.
But in line with trying to expand hunting opportunities, because right now, I think a lot of people don't know. But if we were to expand opportunities, I think we probably, as a city, need to address that clearly with folks. That the liability will be property owner and impose, some sort of insurance requirement.
I agree.
What else, Rick?
I think that's the main one I saw. I think we've talked about the other ones because there's questions about notice and approval, and it sounds like we're of the mindset that there would be an approval process by the city or a permit or something issued relative to providing.
Okay.
I mean, there was, can we provide example ordinances for this? And certainly we could. I think between Brad and myself, I'm sure we probably have most of them already. So we could be prepared to provide that. I don't know if that's that helpful, frankly, but we could certainly do that.
Okay.
Yep.
I know sterilization was on there, but I think we've discussed that before. In fact, last meeting, and we went over it. I've got some documents we can refer to on that. It's expensive.
Yeah.
And you really do have to have a closed population, and these suckers are wild and they're wandering. I just, for the dollar expense and everything else, I just don't think it's going to do what we would hope it would do. So, what else? What about managed hunts?
You want to go back to the prior list of concerns?
There were plenty.
Well, we can do that if you'd like. That's no problem. I know if you want to hash through it, I can read those bullet points if you like, or if you want to shift and put them back on the screen, we could do that. I know we had the no feed ordinance on the agenda too, so I don't know.
Right. So let's stick to that. So let's go to the no feed ordinance. Even though I already asked. Any concerns, question, thoughts? Excuse me, there it is. Sticking to the agenda. Kind of a no-brainer to me, but.
I think it follows MDC policy given CWD and things like that. I think it makes sense. Like, we know it can't be enforced. We know people are still going to feed, but as an official stance,
yeah,
I think we stand with MDC. Saying that, please don't.
Right.
It could be enforced though once it is passed, correct?
Once we have it on the books.
Okay, because I do get calls about people having, a neighbor that has 10 deer in their yard all the time because they're feeding them just piles of food on their picnic table in the backyard and things like that.
And I think the ordinance and public notice about it when this comes out, and this is part of the plan and part of everything that we're doing here. We also, with public communication standpoint, we're going to be notifying people, hey, this is the ordinance, and we really need to stop, and et cetera. So yeah, I know enforcement is always a question with these things, but I think for most people, it will, just having the ordinance will be enough to get them to stop. It's my supposition. Any other thoughts on the no feed? I think we're in agreement. It's a good idea.
Is the enforcement, would that fall onto the police if it were to be enforced, or?
It would, yeah. And I mean, like Michelle said, inevitably we'll have some situations where we'll have to take enforcement action. Mm-hmm. But I would imagine, our approach initially would be, to issue a warning and to educate the property owner that it's against the ordinance to feed wildlife. And if it were to continue, then we would obviously have to take it to the next level. But we try to be as fair as possible with everybody, so they, are aware of what the ordinance is, so they are violating it knowingly. And we would want to give people that opportunity to comply with the ordinance before we would take any official action.
Okay. All right. Any other comments on that before we move on? Nope. All right. Population control measures by owners of large parcels.
Figuring, Brad, you might have something to say to speak to this potentially.
Yeah, so I mean, just the overall idea is that where we have large parcels of property where no hunting is taking place, just to try and bring those parcels to the forefront and be attentive and know, maybe just contact the property owners and see if they in fact allow people to hunt on the property or not, and if they don't, to maybe initiate a discussion with them to see if they would be willing to allow for that. And that kind of goes to the programs that we've mentioned previously about marrying up a pool of hunters that people that are interested in hunting with landowners that would be interested in having people hunt on their property. So just more or less just to encourage hunting and provide the opportunities to landowners and to hunters at the same time, just through communication, basically.
Would it be worth just taking the time to send a postcard to, we could locate all those properties that might be large enough that that would be suitable. Maybe, I don't know where that cutoff would be, but you could send a postcard out or something at some point and say, wanted to make you aware that, or I don't know how, try to provide them notice or encourage to, or an opportunity to educate them of what the options are relative to hunting maybe at some point, or they could be an annual thing, or I don't know.
Yeah, we could maybe think about, consider just maybe having a meeting, schedule a meeting to where we could have, if Aaron Shank would be agreeable to come out and, speak to property owners about the importance of management. I think, maybe that could be done to facilitate all of that.
Yeah, it's a good idea.
Okay.
One thing I'll mention that I don't know if we want to consider adding to the mix or not. I really personally want to promote hunting by the average Joe like myself. But there is an organization within the St. Louis region that is an actual company and not-for-profit organization. So it's not quite a hunting club, but there's a not-for-profit. They have their own insurance and they have vetted people on staff. They are not paid, but they, as an organization, take their insurance along with them and go out and hunt properties around St. Louis County, specifically for control. I don't know if this is something that maybe would make a landowner potentially feel better, that there is actually kind of a group in an organization with insurance and some history in the region, versus just me showing up at their property and saying, hey, can I come hunt? It's just an idea. I really would rather promote young hunters and individuals and landowners and things of that nature. But if there's a large property, they're not comfortable with a certain situation, maybe this would be an option that could be part of the mix. I don't know, just an idea.
Right. No.
I don't have a lot of history with that group. I've just researched and know that there's one out there. And I think collectively this last season, they killed, the last report I saw might have been 130 deer as a group around St. Louis County. It's still not a ton, but it is a hunting force that could be potentially tapped into as part of this connecting landowners to hunters, if someone's more comfortable with that scenario.
Right, and particularly here, maybe with the large parcel owners who, aren't hunters themselves or whatnot, but wouldn't be averse to it. It's an option. Yeah.
One other thought, I do some work with the city of Chesterfield. One of their people shared with me that one of their strategies was they opened up, with their own pre-thought and analyzing of properties, they opened up city property to city employees to hunt. So, the policemen, the public works guys, whomever, maintenance people that were hunters, could actually go hunt on city property that was deemed safe and okay to do, and all that kind of stuff. So just another thought where, somebody at one point brought up a wildwood militia, maybe there's a little bitty versions of those that we can come up with along the way, whether it's this not-for-profit or it's mobilizing our own employees. Your own employees.
As a matter of fact, it was the next item to be considered was organized hunts on city-owned properties. So, but before we go there, are there any other thoughts on the large parcel encouragement front? I think a process of like you said, of notification with a postcard and just engaging the conversation at that point would go a long way with those folks. And the ones who are interested, they'll respond. And so okay. So moving on to what Tim just brought up. So the consideration of organized hunts on city-owned property. Rick?
Yeah, again, this was, I think, one of the bullet points that Brad had suggested further. It could be explored further. I know we've talked about organized hunts and to the degree to which the city might get involved. I think that's always been the question: how much would we get involved, and would we spend money on it directly or not? Brad, did you have any thoughts in particular on this one, or?
Yeah, I mean, I think we could just model it after what the county parks department has done this past year, and the Department of Natural Resources at Babbler Park and Rockwood Reservation. The Missouri Department of Conservation plays a great role in the managed hunts on all of those properties. So I don't see why they would be opposed necessarily to include city-owned property if the city would wish to allow for that. So I mean, that would just be something we would have to have a conversation with Aaron Shank again about, to see if she would be willing to kind of facilitate special organized hunts on city properties. I'm sure that she would be willing to be involved and help us through the process in the very least. But I'm pretty sure she had a pretty significant role in the hunts at Greensfelder this past year anyway. So I think if we, I mean, that's entirely up to the city to decide, but I don't know. I think it would be just another layer that we could add to the overall efforts that would increase our effectiveness in managing the population.
Wouldn't necessarily be something the city would have to commit to, but just the possibility, right? That if it got organized.
Yeah, Brad, are you far enough into the thought process of identifying those specific properties, or?
No. So I mean, that would be I haven't really done any research or thought. So I don't know. That would be the next step, really, to take a look at all the city-owned properties and just to determine if it would want to be considered or if it's viable.
Okay. The ones I keep thinking of, they're all county parks.
Yeah, we do own a fair amount of land in front of or north of Anniversary Park, down there on Clayton Road, and I think along Cox Creek. Of course, there are, McBride Point, the homes are there fairly close, but there is a decent tract of land there.
And certainly if it was an organized hunt, then parameters could be set, for the hunt itself and whatnot.
Yeah.
Again, by the city.
Yep.
And not just sending people out saying hunt at will. It would be a specified time and date, right? I think that's what you're conceiving of, Tim. And then, make sure everyone's on the same page as to, what's allowed and what's not.
Community park is about 62 acres. So it's a nice sized tract of land. Now, I think that it's going to be fairly controversial to do that, but obviously you could literally close the park to just that activity, I'm sure, one that was occurring.
Okay. Any other thoughts on that?
If we can find some other properties, we might be able to combine it with City Hall. I don't know that we have any, I'm getting off the subject, but I don't know that we have any hunters here other than, Michelle, do you know? Maybe Frank? Frank hunt deer? I guess Frank, Brendan, maybe.
Frank and Brendan, definitely.
Yeah. So I don't, other than maybe some police officers, we don't have a lot of hunters on our staff, but
I'm trying to think if there's anyone else. I think that's it. But the police.
but maybe there's some police officers out there too that would be
There's probably several
excited
police.
about that prospect, but
Yeah. Or, it could be that, we simply make the hunting public or organizations like the one Tim mentioned aware that these properties are available, and, if anyone was interested, to contact the city and then see what could be done. And a group like that might be able to, or have a day or a weekend or something.
yeah.
Okay.
Well, I think the idea of having it in the plan is to allow that idea to percolate and potentially come forward in enough detail that we could do it at some point. But
Right.
There's going to need to be a lot of work done to really put a proposal on the table, I think, for any of those ideas.
Okay. All right. I want to try and be mindful of everyone's time. And we've covered a lot of territory. I think what I think would be useful for us is if we could have a conversation with the gal from DNR with the group. Lay out some of our thoughts. I know there's certain things they, certainly would approve, and there's other things they probably, I want to be sure we aren't stepping on their toes as well. Do you think she'd be amenable to meet with us, Brad, Rick, Michelle?
I think, weren't we going to do that? Wasn't that what we talked about, is trying to schedule some time with Aaron, particularly after we do get the count information in?
Right.
Am I recalling that correctly?
Yeah, I
Yeah,
think
and if we-
that's a good idea.
If we can't get her in a meeting, which can be difficult, at least have it laid out and emailed.
Yeah.
Start the conversation going that way.
Yeah, Tim?
I had reached out to Aaron at one point, kind of talking in general about how I wish that MDC would, and maybe they are, and I don't know it, but take a bigger role in Western St. Louis County in general. You've got all these municipalities like us that are working on deer plans and considering spending money on sharpshooters and working on things like this. And I think there's a lot of low-hanging fruit that could be attained just by keeping even within our current ordinances, but have special hunts that MDC allows. They do this for farmers where they're overpopulated. They give them special tags and allow special hunting. If they allowed a, West of 109, we have the right to be able to hunt with a firearm under the right circumstances. If we had a special hunt, sometime through the season for antlerless only deer, I think that would be another way that could help manage the deer herd with our own, citizens. I would take advantage of that. I don't know what it would take or how much arm twisting, or if MDC's even interested in doing those kind of things. But, we could pick the area within Wildwood that allows gun hunting and give them the special opportunity to hunt antlerless deer with the firearms and have more tags, have more opportunity and more tags. Just another idea. Again, like you said, I don't want to take too much time, but it's just another thing I've thought of that I think MDC could do and we could encourage. I'll leave it at that.
Okay.
Right, isn't that going on already to some degree or not?
The like the managed hunts and that type of thing. Is that what you're?
Yeah, special managed hunts.
Yeah.
On
Well,
private property.
well, yeah. There's a couple up there off of by like Strecker and Valley, all that farmland. They pull special hunt permits. They've been, I think, doing that up there for the last couple of years. So, and I think that's impacted pretty significantly the population. Because I can recall when we did the count in 2018 in those fields up there, we probably counted between 60 and 80 deer at one time as we were doing the deer count, compared to this past year, maybe 10. So they've been pretty effective with the hunting in that area. And Pasiglia they pull permits. I don't know that they did this past year, but I know that they have in the past, because the deer just destroy all of their inventory. So I know they've taken those measures in the past as well. So yeah, and that could just be an educational type thing too, that that when we reach out to the owners of the larger parcels of property, just to make sure that they're aware that possibility is available to them. So yeah, but yeah, it all requires coordination with the Department of Conservation, though, because they're the ones who issue the permits for all those hunts.
Yep. And just to add one thing, as a 3-acre lot owner, I don't think I have the capability to go to MDC and ask for extra tags. But as Wildwood, we could ask for them collectively. Is my thought. That would give them, some of the people like myself that have the 3 acres, or people that want to have someone in to hunt on their 3 acres, like some of my neighbors do. Just give them more opportunity and more encouragement to, antlerless harvest with a firearm in addition to a bow and arrow. Because either way, it's just so hard with a bow. I try, but it is really hard. It's so much easier with a gun. And, if you give more opportunity, I would hope there'd be more harvest as well.
Yeah, I think your idea of reaching out to those large property owners, there's a lot of ideas there about doing some good or encouraging hunting in numerous ways. So I think that's a good idea that we could work with.
Well, and there's agricultural land on my side of Wildwood too, that they could get those permits, and maybe it would be a matter of just needing hunters. So it would be interesting to reach out to some of those folks.
Right. Again, finding opportunity to meet the people who are interested in doing it, to Tim's point, and create more opportunity for the harvesting. So okay, all right. Any other thoughts for tonight? I think we've chewed over a lot of stuff. So goals for next in the interim between now and the next meeting. Let's see if we can get with Aaron after we get the count and the estimate population, and start conversing with her. And then Rick, I'll probably give you a call the next day or so, and perhaps we can start drafting a proposal, knowing we're not going to have anything done, really quick, but at least we can start drafting the proposal so we actually have something on paper we can chew through a lot faster and more efficiently, I think. So I think we have a lot of good ideas. We just need to start coalescing them together.
Well, some of these things that we've talked about tonight could certainly be added to the plan, provide a little more depth, a little more detail, if that's what you're saying.
Yeah, it's essentially what I'm saying.
That's what I was kind of wondering, if that was what you'd like to do.
And that way we have some sort of form around it, and then we can, share it and actually be going through it. And, because at some point we have to, bring this to council. So while addressing the concerns that they brought, the smaller group brought up to us.
Correct. Yep. But yeah, if you want to give me a call, that's fine. If you still like to do that. Would you like Michelle to reach out to Aaron, or Brad? Do you want Brad to reach out to Aaron and try to set something up or for a future meeting or?
Well, let's
Yeah.
get the count in, and then I think we could, probably more faithfully then tell Aaron, hey, we've got something to show you. I'd hate to schedule something and have something to delay it, and put
Yeah,
her on notice.
it'd be a nice way to, have an invite her to discuss the results of the count with
Right.
us and all that.
So once we have those, and we can start reaching out to her for that.
Yeah, so she'll definitely, she has an interest in the results of that. So I think
Sure.
it goes without saying that she'll be happy to join us. So yeah, as soon as the report is completed, we'll make sure that we
Okay.
distribute that to everybody. So like I said, hopefully it'll be completed hopefully by next week.
Awesome.
We'll, as
That's
soon as it is, we'll get it out. So I go on vacation after next week. I'll be gone for 2 weeks, but Captain Mundell will have his finger on the pulse of that. So it hopefully will be done next week.
Okay. Awesome. That'll work.
Okay.
So next meeting date, at this point, I think we're kind of fluid on some things, so I don't want to necessarily set the meeting. I think it's going to kind of depend on, when we can have that conversation with Aaron informally and whatnot before, there's and maybe we get a few things drafted into the plan. And then I think at that point, then we could schedule a meeting. Anyone have a different thought?
Do you think the meeting results and the draft proposal would be good to propose to Board of Public Safety again in March?
Depends how far we can get through this. I don't want to put undue pressure on you guys regarding getting the draft together and whatever. Because you're busy on top of everything
It's
else.
just a thought.
Yeah.
The next regular Board of Public Safety is 2 weeks.
Yeah.
That's not very much time.
Yeah,
Not
no, it's
a lot,
not much
no.
time at all for that. So next steps, let's get the results of the survey from the county. And then let's see if we can get some time with Aaron and take it from there. And then we can decide at that point, then we can decide when we need to have the next meeting. I think we have a conversation with her, at some point, unless the entire group wants to be there. I don't want to, have to make things delay that long. If we can get a meeting and with 2 or 3 people talk to Aaron, I think that's efficient. And that subgroup can report back. Here's what, we showed her this, that, and here were their concerns or whatnot. And we're going to make adjustments to the draft anyways, based on that, because we can't contravene, their rules, obviously.
Correct. Yep.
So then at that point, I think then we'd be able to say, okay, time for a meeting and go over what we have. Does that make sense? Okay. All right. Well, I appreciate everybody's time tonight. I know it's cold out, so we kept you here warm though, right?
It's balmy out there tonight.
Yeah. I know my dog wishes her legs were longer.
So's my puppy.
Yeah. They love the snow until they're in it. Whoa.
Right.
So, okay. Thanks again, everybody. Take care.
All right.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Here.
Bye.